Welcome back to Yehoshua's Gematria-Time Daf Yomi Shiur. When in the end time, it is always a good time to learn Daf Yomi in Gematria-Time. Today's words are, again, the purpose of Gematria-Time is to learn words of the Talmud numerically. And I noticed that a lot of these words come over and over again, so I'll be repeating them. It's not just a one-time thing. I'm not doing words that are unique to every daf. I'm doing a lot of the same words over and over again. I think this will be a good way of really getting some good review. Chazara, they call it. And so the words for 103b, Chullin 103b, are, again, these are famous words. I think we've had some variation of these before. The Kuli Alma Lo Pligi. The Kuli Alma Lo Pligi, that everyone doesn't disagree. Like, everyone agrees, meaning that, but when they disagree, but ki pligi, when they argue. So, the Kuli Alma Lo Pligi, that everyone doesn't argue, is equal to 375, which equals Shlomo. Also equals Oseh, like Oseh Shalom, Ayin, Shin, Hey, 375. And another word we've had before, and it's not so common, but it's there. It's called ishtik, means he's quiet. And do you remember the mnemonic I gave? It was a few daf ago. Ishtik, he was quiet. I'll give you a hint. It's the same numerical value as Achashverosh from the Purim story. When it's spelled with two vavs. Sometimes it's spelled with only one vav, but if it's spelled it's full, it's like it first starts. Yehi me Achashverosh. There, Achashverosh equals, yep, you got it, 821. Achashverosh equals 821, and so does Ishtik. I remember the joke I said. The joke I said was, he was a quiet guy. No, he wasn't quiet, but maybe when he went to sleep, he was quiet. That's Achashverosh. He doesn't strike me as a quiet guy, but, when he went to sleep, I'm sure he was quiet. Or something like that. Ishtik, he's quiet, and it also equals Achashverosh. 821. And then we're starting, God willing, the new parak, the 8th chapter of Chullin, called Kol HaBasar, all of the flesh. Kol HaBasar equals 557, which equals Rishon. First. Okay. And now we are on close to the top of 103b, with the words Ki Asar Avdimi Amar. Okay? Ki Asar Avdimi. The Gemara continues its discussion of the prohibition against eating a limb from a living animal. Aver min achai. When Ravdimi came from Eretz Yisrael, Ki Asar Avdimi Amar, Bai mine Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan Chilko Miyachutz Mahu Amar Lepatur. When Ravdimi came from Eretz Israel to Babylonia, he said, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish inquired of Rabbi Yochanan if one took from a living animal a limb that was an olive bulk and divided it into two pieces when it was outside his mouth and ate each piece separately, what's the halacha? Rabbi Yochanan said to him, he's exempt. Mi bifnim mai amar le chayav. Reish Lakish then asked Rabbi Yochanan if he placed an olive bulk of a limb from a living animal inside his mouth and then he divided it and swallowed the two parts separately, what is the halacha? Rabbi Yochanan said to him, he is liable to receive lashes. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said an alternative version of this discussion. If one took from a living animal a limb that was an olive bulk and divided it into two pieces when it was outside his mouth, and he then ate each piece separately, he is exempt. If he divided the limb into two parts inside his mouth, Rabbi Yochanan says that he is liable, and Reish Lakish says that he is exempt. Rabbi Yochanan Malchai, Mikazais, Reish Lakish Ma'abato, Chilev Me'a Beinan Veleka. Rabbi Yochanan says he is liable because his throat derives pleasure from an olive bulk of a limb from a living animal. Reish Lakish says that he is exempt because in order to be liable, we require an act of eating that contains the requisite amount, meaning an olive bulk when it enters his stomach. And in this case, there is not a full olive bulk that enters his stomach at one time. Ela Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Heichim Mishkachas La Timichayav Amar Rav Kahana Bikromisa Zeirta. The Gemara asks, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, it is clear how one can be liable for eating an olive bulk of a limb from a living animal, but according to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, how can you find a case where one will be liable for eating a limb from a living animal, since the food is generally broken up before he swallows it? Rav Kahana said one would be liable in a case where he eats a small bone that contains an olive bulk of meat, bone and sinew all together, and that he can swallow it whole. V'Rabbi Elazar Amar afilu chilko mivachutz tamichai mechusar krivelav ki mechusar masidami. As quoted above, Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish agree that if one derives a limb from a living animal before placing it in his mouth, he is not liable for eating it. The Gemara adds, but Rabbi Elazar says even if one divides a limb inside of his mouth, he is liable. This is because the fact that the two pieces are lacking in proximity to each other as they are placed in one's mouth is not comparable to lacking in action. Meaning is not comparable to a case where he ate only half an olive bulk. Since he ate an entire olive bulk, he is liable. Amar Bishum Lakish, Kazayas Shambu, Chutz Michel Ben Shashiraim, Ryochim Namafim Ben Ashinaim. The Gemara cites another dispute between the Ryochim and Rish Lakish pertaining to the measure of an olive bulk with regard to the prohibitions involving eating. Rishon ben Lakish says the olive bulk of which the sages spoke with regard to prohibitions involving eating is measured by the food one actually swallows, aside from the food that remains stuck between the teeth. And Rabbi Yochanan says that it includes even the food that remains stuck between the teeth. Is that a word? Yes, it is. Does anyone remember what those words mean? Translate to numerically. I'll give you a hint. It's the same value as the name Shlomo, or Oseh, as in Oseh Shalom Yimromav. You got it. The Kuli Amal Bligi equals 375. The Kuli Amal Pligi. Everyone agrees. It really means everyone doesn't disagree. So to translate it, everyone agrees. I guess to keep it just more simple. That's why they write it here. But it literally means the Kuli Alma, the whole world, means everybody. Lo Pligi, don't disagree. When do they disagree? Everyone agrees that it is not included in measuring an olive bulk. What Rav Papa says with regard to food that remains stuck in between the teeth, everyone agrees that it is not included in measuring an olive bulk that would render one liable to receive lashes. How are they going to check? The witnesses are going to go inside their teeth, When they disagree is with regard to food that remains on the palate. Mar Savar reminded me of a weird thing. The food that's in one's palate reminded me of a very, very bizarre scene I can see. Somebody caught somebody eating in class, and he actually didn't want him to swallow, so he went and he stuck his finger into his mouth and took the food out in the middle of the whole class. That must have been extremely humiliating for the person. I still remember that sight till this very day. What a horrible sight. Okay. It reminded me of that. Bein HaChanichayim was stuck. They argue, they disagree with regard to the food that remains on the palate. With regard to food that remains on the palate, which one tastes but does not swallow. Mar Savar, we had that before. Mar Savar is Mar Savar 502, Malkuto 502, Mar Savar. Mar Savar The explanation of this dispute, Rav Papa says, with regard to food that remains stuck between the teeth, Everyone agrees that it is not included in measuring all bulk that would render one liable to receive lashes when they disagree. Is regard to food that remains on the palate, which one tastes but does not swallow. One sage of Yehoshua holds that since his throat derives pleasure from an olive bulk, meaning that he tastes the full olive bulk, he is liable, and one sage Rish Lakish holds that in order to be liable, we require an act of eating that contains the requisite amount, meaning olive bulk, when it enters his stomach. Okay. When it enters his stomach. Ba'a Rabbi Lazar me Rabbi Asi. Achal chatzi zayis veheki'o v'chazar v'yachlo mahu mai kami boile. I havi ikul, I lo havi ikul v'tiboile kizayis. Rabbi Lazar raised a dilemma. Rabbi Lazar raised a dilemma for Rabbi Asi. If one ate half an olive bulk of forbidden food and then vomited it and then ate it again, nasty. What is halacha? The Gemara clarifies what is the dilemma he's raising. He's probably not chayav because he's considered an insane person. Insane people do that; they eat their own whatever. What is the dilemma he's raising? If it is about whether an olive bulk that he ate and vomited is considered to have been digested, in which case it is no longer considered food, or whether it is not considered to have been digested. Let him raise the dilemma with regard to an olive bulk, entire olive bulk. If one eats entire olive bulk and vomits it, and then eats it again, if the food is considered not to have been digested the first time, he is liable to be flogged twice. Rather, the dilemma must be about whether we follow the throat, or whether we follow the stomach in measuring how much forbidden food one has swallowed. That being the case, then resolve the dilemma from that which Rabbi Asi said, that Rabbi Yochanan said, which indicates that we follow the throat. Rabbi Asi Gematria-Time. See if we have any more words here. Rabbi Asi Gematria-Time, Vyasa Rabbi Elazar Liad Korei. ואחרי כאמר לי, למה לי חצי זייס אחר? למה מר בדידי? יקמי למשמע מינה תרתש מיינן מינה תלא בעיקול משמין מינה דרנן בגרוניק בזייס. The Gemara explains that Rabbi Lazar knew the answer to his question, but Rabbi Asi forgot the statement that he had learned from Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Lazar came to remind him of what he had known previously. And this is what Rabbi Lazar was saying to him. Why do I need the case where he swallows another half an olive bulk? Let the master teach this ruling in a case where he swallows the same half olive bulk he had swallowed previously and vomited, as two principles can be derived from the ruling in that case. We can learn from it that the food was not considered to have been digested the first time he swallowed it, and we can learn from it that since his throat derives pleasure from a full olive bulk, he is liable. Ishtik. There's our word. Do you remember that ishtik? I give you a hint. It's like he's quiet when he's sleeping. Achashverosh. Ishtik is 821. Velo amam lo midi. Ishtak velo amam le midi. Ishtak velo amam le midi. That's how you say it. Ishtik, he was quiet. Velo amar le velo midi. He was quiet. He didn't say anything. Amar le mo pesado. Lo zimnin segiyin amat kamed Rabbi Yochanan. Babale. Hare nene grono kesais. Rabbi Asi was silent and did not say anything. Rabbi Elazar said to him, "Wonder of the generation, did you not say this case many times before Rabbi Yochanan? And he said to you, this person is liable because his throat derives pleasure from a full olive bulk?" Ends off in a question there. Hadron alach gid hanoshe. We shall return to Gid hanoshe, 7th parak of Chullin, and now we start the new 8th parak with the Mishnah called Kol Basar, which was our third word of this Amud. Kol HaBasar equals 557, which also equals Rishon. And these are the first words of our new chapter. Kol HaBasar Asur Basar B'chalav. Chutz מבשר דגים וחגבים. The Mishnah says it is prohibited to cook any meat of domesticated and undomesticated animals in birds, in milk, except for the meat of fish and grasshoppers. Thus you couldn't cook in milk, whose halachic status is not that of meat. And likewise, the sages issued a decree that it is prohibited to place any meat together with milk products, meaning cheese, on one table. The reason for this prohibition is that one might come to eat them after they absorb substances from each other. This prohibition applies to all types of meat except for the meat of fish and grasshoppers.